unfortunately, the client introduced himself to me as my credit card was being declined for the $2 cup of coffee. And the worst part was, Jen, I thought that was the card that would work. I really thought that was the one that might cover the coffee. So I was just so embarrassed as he paid my coffee. How did I get in this room? These people are so amazing. They're so much more successful, smarter. Like they seem to have it all put together. Like I had this total imposter syndrome.
I am so excited today about this lady. She has been broke. She didn't have money to pay for her coffee. She had to meet a client. In her bicycle, she went to that coffee shop, but she take all of these challenges and turn it into a six-figure income. And now she's helping many entrepreneurs to change the way that they are not only doing their business, but how they are setting their life to create real financial freedom. So I want you guys to get to know Erin Bradley. Erin, how are you today?
I'm great, Jen. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on the show with you today.
Yes, I mean it's for me it's a privilege to have you here. You have a great story to share. You have so many insights that so many of the women watching our show can enjoy. Erin, let's start with the strongest story, right? I heard, yes, you go to this coffee shop, the client gets there at the same time as you order and your credit card decline. You are in a bicycle and suddenly you are in this moment that I think a lot of the strongest entrepreneurs have deal with, right? That we're broke, we're in a moment of make it or break it. What happened through your mind at that moment?
Well, we'll start with just humiliation. It was embarrassing. I had wanted to be self-employed because I wanted freedom and flexibility. And I had gone to school and gotten a business degree in college. And as the youngest of five kids, all of my siblings had graduated college and went straight into corporate America and they got great jobs. And here I was, the baby graduating from college, and I wanted to travel and adventure. So I went and, kayaked the coast of Mexico for a month. I spent 2 years in Barcelona and went on African safari. I was doing all this fun stuff and I had the itch, right, for freedom and time, time freedom really. But all the while I had no financial security whatsoever. Let's just say I was making like $900 a month cash under the table in Spain and running out of money every single month and living on buttered noodles. So when I fell into the mortgage business in 2006 and I started to see the salespeople, the loan officers, they're 100% commission, but they're coming to work in jeans and a t-shirt, and then they're going to yoga in the middle of the day. Then they're putting on their suit and they're going to the closing, getting their big fat commission checks and whatnot. And I thought, that's the life for me. The footloose and fancy free, right? Just like a free spirit with no idea what it means to actually be 100% commission, be self-employed, and create your own destiny. And so I took the leap of faith in the summer of 2007 and went 100% commission. And as you alluded to, I promptly fell flat on my face. I had no safety net, no plan, no systems, no confidence. I really hated anything that felt salesy. And so most sales training to me was uncomfortable. And so I was very inconsistent in my execution and inconsistent in my results. And so, yeah, in the summer of 2008, perfect timing with being in the real estate industry as the market is crashing, and I get a lead for a new client and I didn't have enough money for gas. So I had to ride my bike 5 miles across town in the heat in the summer, trying to figure out what to wear that I can ride a bike and look professional. And then I got there early so that the sweat could dry off. And unfortunately, the client introduced himself to me as my credit card was being declined for the $2 cup of coffee. And the worst part was, Jen, I thought that was the card that would work. I really thought that was the one that might cover the coffee. So I was just so embarrassed as he paid my coffee. And I remember calling my dad for advice. And I just said, this is so much harder than I realized. And he went 100% commission in his 20s. And so he just asked me, do you think you're going to be good at this someday, Erin? And I thought, yeah, I do. I think I would be good at this. I care about people, customer service, education, all these things. And he said, well, then you do whatever it takes. And so I opened another credit card. I hired my first coach, which is interesting because a lot of people, now that I am a full-time coach, I talk to a lot of people that feel like they can't afford to hire the coach because they want to get where they're trying to go first. But it's difficult to get beyond the limitations of our own personal belief systems, our thoughts, our habits, et cetera. And so I just knew I wasn't going to give up. And I figured a coach would be the person that could give me the game plan, hold me accountable, and pull me along until my belief evolved, right, into some new identity that I believe we all have to do. We need to evolve our identity as we grow into the person we're trying to become to live the life that we desire for ourselves. So yeah, I mean that was the rock bottom, and it wasn't the last time either. Like you alluded to, being an entrepreneur is not the easy route, right? It's not just going to be a straight line like you overcome one challenge and then you've got it all figured out because with the evolution of you as a person, your interests evolve, as your business grows, the demands on your time change and you have to navigate new challenges again and again and again with the determination to do whatever it takes, right? And continue to design the life that is going to be powered by a business that you love.
Yes, that's for sure. I think a lot of people get fascinated and excited about what they see the result is when they look at entrepreneurs and they're living the good life. And when I say that, I mean in their own terms, right? And the moment they realize that the journey it's rocky, it's challenging, if you don't have a strong why and you don't understand that whoever you are today will have to change in order to get where you want to go, people get stuck. And if they don't work with someone like you, coaching, mentoring, or find a way to really, really deliver what they want, they get stuck. And fear gets them away from what they want. And I think that one of the things that I admire about your journey is how you take who Erin is, an adventurous woman that enjoy having a life in her own terms, and she looks more like improv at that moment, but she understands that learning structure to get that kind of life freedom was something that was needed. Erin, how was that journey from who was Erin in the past, how that structure came to your life, and what was that thing that clicked in your mind that says I need a structure in order to live the freedom that I want?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I was starting out, I resisted structure and systems. Like I said earlier, I'm definitely a free spirit. I love spontaneity. I love change. And I felt like I could just wing it and throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And what I've learned in my own journey and also with those that I work with now is that here's how I perceive it or what I witnessed in my own experience is that when I was starting out, I had no clue what I was capable of. And as I was experiencing my first, financial stress and failure financially, if you will, I had this insecurity and this feeling of, I hope it'll work out. Fingers crossed, I hope it'll work out. But it was more of a hope than a belief. And my thoughts and beliefs, were still stuck in this limiting belief and a lot of uncertainty and just like I said, fingers crossed, hope for the best, right? Well, inevitably with the help of a coach and the systems that they provided for me to follow, I started to experience traction and grow the bit and the business started to grow. Well, it wasn't until 4 years into the business that I ended up developing a strategy that felt really authentic to me, a way that I could communicate, become unleashed in being a resource to my clients, being in engagement and visibility, adding value to people's lives, and seeing my business explode as a byproduct. And as I started to teach it to other real estate professionals, I saw that I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one who was trying to create financial stability, but trying to do so authentically. And I know that word has become a little bit cliche, but it's kind of like there's a lot of training out there with the one size fits all plan. Just do this activity to get the deals, to get the money, to get, the leads and et cetera. And so out of desperation, we muster up the courage and we muscle through this activity in spite of the misalignment. And it's kind of like there's you, your heart and soul, your authenticity, the person who shows up with your loved ones. When they are celebrating, you're celebrating. When they're mourning, you're crying with them. Your heart and soul is connected through love and sincerity and generosity and all these things, right? In your personal relationships. And what I experienced was that I was putting on this work hat and it felt like a separation from Aaron. It felt like I was playing a role. And even though it was working and it was getting me the closings to pay the bills so that, I didn't foreclose on my house, it didn't mean that it was enjoyable because I felt like I was putting on someone else's shoes and I had this massive imposter syndrome. And that went on for years. And so even after I developed a strategy that allowed me to be myself and then increase my referrals systematically and have more fun growing my business, and I started teaching it to others, what I noticed was that I still hadn't addressed the infrastructure of fear, uncertainty, limiting beliefs. So as my business started to grow and I started to feel more secure financially, I was crumbling in other gardens of my life. So as a wife, as a mom, as a friend, I was becoming a shell of myself because I was just trying to survive this quote unquote success that I had created, but I wasn't in alignment with it because it was robbing me of all my time freedom. And so for a little while, and I see a lot of people that have achieved external success. We call them successful, but that's not exactly how I define success. It's just money, making money, right? Like to what end, right? Is it helping you to design a life that is fulfilling and where you are checking off all your bucket list adventures one by one and you're present with your loved ones? Or is it like you're going to live your life someday while you survive the financial success that you've created for yourself for fear of losing it? For fear of letting somebody down, for fear of, losing what you've built and fear of what people will think of you. So what I noticed is that here I was drowning in the quote unquote success of my business, working 24/7, tethered to my phone from the moment I wake up till the moment I fall asleep, terrified of making one wrong move or dropping the ball. And what I was doing in this time period was I was dropping the ball on myself, right? I had lost the purpose behind why I became self-employed. And I feel like the stress of burnout was possibly worse than the stress of being financially broke. Because at least when I was broke, I had this burning desire to change my reality and there was a challenge in it and I was energized and I was excited and of course I was uncertain, but I was kind of there was thrill in the challenge, right? But when you're drowning in the busyness of your business, that stress level is so tricky because our brains are so powerful in convincing ourselves that we're fine and that something must be wrong with us. We're so grateful. We're so lucky. We're making all this money. What do we have to complain about? But the issue is that we're physically in the same room with people we care about, while mentally we're somewhere else, a million miles away. And it doesn't feel successful to me. So I define success as unlimited present moments with the people I care about personally and professionally, and a life of dreams coming true, funded and financed by a business that I've organized to support that vision, right? So the vision is much bigger than simply dollars in the bank. The dollars fund the vision. So they're very important, but they're not the end all be all object of my desire. And it took a lot to deconstruct the thoughts and the beliefs and the fears to start making different decisions in my business, like hiring help and having better technology and better systems so that I could create a business that was well-oiled machine that resulted in consistent execution for consistent outcomes so that I could feel safe in hiring help and enlisting the help of others because we had a plan in place. So it took me like 8 years of riding this roller coaster of broke, burnout before I was willing to say enough is enough. And I think at some point, all of us in our journey have to get there. We have to get to a point where we just say, you know what, this is not what I signed up for. And this is harder than I thought. And I'm still going to keep going and I'm going to be uncomfortable and I'm going to feel imposter syndrome. And if I don't, chances are I'm playing small. So I really believe in this journey, this evolution of being on the leading edge of this expansion that's always going to feel a little bit scary, a little uncomfortable. And yet I believe settling, sucking it up, staying put is even more uncomfortable. And I really do believe this is like the human design, is that we're here to grow and expand. and that it's always going to feel like, well, this is unfamiliar territory. It's like, yeah, because you're going to the next, it's not about more and more and more. It's about more alignment. It's about more peace, more ease, more joy, more connection, more engagement. And with more contribution, the abundance will follow. Like, so the financial abundance follows the light within you being ignited and the flame shining bright and you sharing that light with your world. And this is where I believe that like we can unlock a really purpose-driven life powered by a purpose-driven business, and it can be way more fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that one of the things that define the women that I tend to hang out with is the fact that we live in purpose. Hey, don't get me wrong, I respect hustle, I do. But if I am taking action just for the sake of making money, it doesn't fulfill me. It's not who I am as a whole human being. And I love how you describe that roller coaster of different identities, right? Because sometimes you will find yourself not being yourself, wearing this hat that is not you. And we have to go through that journey to find our purpose, our alignment, and the things that we're good at it, and the things that we say, you know what, I'm not very good, but maybe I should learn a little bit about this so I can bring someone who knows how to do this better than me. And that's how you scale smart without burning yourself. And I think you have been brilliant on how you have put these systems together. I love the fact how you take the complexity of a business and you figure out a way, and then you bring your team and grow as you grow. Erin, what is the biggest challenge when it comes to scaling smart and keeping what I call your sanity in a business for most of your clients?
I would say the biggest challenge most people face is the fear of investing in themselves. And what I mean by that is that I experienced this as well. So when my business was slow, I would tell myself, I'm going to feel better when it's busy. So when I have more business and I have more income coming in, I'm going to feel safer, more present, more engaged, all the things we talked about earlier, right? And then inevitably I'd have a big pop in business and I'd find myself a passenger on a speeding train going off the rails, just barely treading water, trying to almost hold up a ship that feels like it's sinking. And instead of me at the bow of the ship, charting the course and steering, I'm in the water swimming and patching holes and just trying to stay afloat, right? And when that's happening, inevitably, as your time becomes compressed, your enthusiasm becomes compressed, the light within you starts to dim and you find yourself lacking in energy. And when you're feeling tired and you convince yourself it's fine, I'm lucky that this is so great, we have money coming in. And when it slows down, I'll give myself permission to rest, to be present, to be more engaged with the people I care about. And that is an illusion because what happens is it does slow down because you've just asked for it to slow down. And when it does, do we celebrate the slowdown or do we panic? Most of the time, at least in my experience, I would panic. Oh my gosh. And the fact that it went down, now I look at that as evidence to say, see, I can't hire help. I can't take the time to build a stronger foundation for this business because it's inconsistent. Well, if we're honest, the only thing that's inconsistent is us, our energy, our enthusiasm, our time, right? And so as we ride that roller coaster, these waves of growth in business leads to an increase in demand for your customer service experience, which means that there's not as much time for sales and marketing. So inevitably the business slows down. And now we don't have the demand for customer service because we're out of clients, but we have more time for sales and marketing. So we put our foot on the gas. And so I like to challenge people, whether they're brand new to the business and they might be thinking, oh, that sounds like a great problem to have, is more business than I can handle. But my challenge is if you're not willing to run the business like a business owner, have a plan, have a schedule, go to work on time, do what's expected of you, expect success and plan for it. What you're doing is you're throwing stuff against the wall and you're building a structure on a faulty foundation. What happens is if we can slow down to evaluate how do we want to live? Like when do we want to work? When do we want to play? And how do we create consistency and execution in our business so that we don't become our own bottleneck? And so while maybe you don't have it in your budget to hire that person right now, or maybe you don't think you're in a position to hire that mentor, that coach, or get in that community right now, and you think I'll do it someday in the future. The problem is that what I've seen is that when people experience burnout and then they go back down again, they slow down again, it becomes this negative cycle that's on repeat of just fear, right? Fear it's going to slow down when it's busy, or craving it to slow down when it's busy, being a witness to the slowdown, letting that feed the fear, proving yourself right. This is inconsistent. The truth of the matter is, we simply cannot do it all the time and do it well. So, what we want is a business that runs whether you're in the mood, right? Whether you have the enthusiasm or whether you're in the country. I think when we think about entrepreneurship, we think freedom and flexibility. And I see so many people, myself included, for almost a decade, where I was tethered to my phone 7 days a week from the moment I wake up to the moment I fall asleep. And it's so funny because if you think about it, when you take the leap of faith, you go 100% commission. You're not like, you know what I'm really hoping, Jen? I'm really hoping I can just work every day for the rest of my life and never take a vacation. And I hope that I get to work when I'm on vacation, even though I'm going to be with my family who I love. I'd rather just be tethered to my phone and be distracted and preoccupied and stressed out all the time. Doesn't that sound great? So, like, if that's not the vision we had when we started, but if that's your reality, coming full circle, the challenge I see is the fear to invest in yourself. Every time I hired some help or I implemented a system that streamlined and made things more efficient, I would see an increase in my business with less effort from me. And so when I look at that, it's like, well, let's say that part-time assistant is going to cost you $15,000 a year. But let's say with his or her help, you could bring in another $50,000 in revenue, for example. Well, then it didn't cost you 15,000 to hire this person. It cost you 35,000 not to. What if you hire a coach? Like, I'm never without a coach. I have three different strategic coaches right now, one in operations, one in sales and marketing, one in systems. So I'm always being coached because I know that I'm limited in what I can see or believe to be true. I'm going to be limited by my fear. I'm going to be limited by my thoughts. And so I always put myself in the room with people that remind me of my future. That's communities, mastermind groups, coaches, whatever, right? Well, let's say I did this. I just invested $15,000 in a marketing coach who's really helping to level up. That's not my zone of genius, right? I know what I'm good at, and it's definitely not that. Let's say that brings in another $100,000 in revenue. And it didn't cost me $15,000 to invest in her. It cost me 85,000 not to. When you look at it from that lens, it becomes a no-brainer, right? To put yourself in the room with people that remind you of your future, let them unlock the belief within you, let you borrow the belief you see in them, the belief they have in you, all these things, and all of a sudden you start to evolve much more quickly. So it is scary to invest in ourselves, but even when I retired my mortgage license after almost 17 years and went full time into coaching, the first thing I did was hire somebody ahead of the profit. And it's scary. Of course, it's scary, but it's scarier not to because I would be stuck in the trenches trying to figure out tech and admin and ops and things that they don't bring me joy. And if it doesn't bring me joy, it's going to suck the life out of me. And if my energy is low, my impact is going to be low. Okay, so it's really just reverse engineering the life you want, fueled by the business, where you're working the least amount possible, but the most energized and the most enthusiastic, the most impactful. And you can move mountains this way.
Yes, yeah, that's for sure. And I think that also a lot of people like look at the entire journey and they get overwhelmed, they get scared, and they decide not to hire a coach, a mentor, or even go to a community that might help them move a little bit closer. And what I see the biggest challenge is they decide that they don't want to invest in themselves. They keep doing the same thing, stuck in the same cycle, and then never grow. And at that point, that the energy goes down, as you mentioned, Erin. And something that I have seen you do as I'm looking at interviews, as I'm talking to the girls about you, is the process of how you have been scaling smart, right? You start at a journey. This is the first phase, and this is how I'm going to reward myself. Now I need to become a different person at the second step of my journey. If I want to design the life in these terms, be more present and be there as a wife, as a mother, as a business owner, and as a leader. How Tell me about an experience you have with one of the most, one of your clients that make you the most proud. Because there's always that person that you help and you are like, oh my God, I have seen them grow. Do you have a story of that person that you learned too? Because that has happened to me too.
Yeah, so I started working with one woman one on one, and she was already operating at a very high level in her business. She was earning at a very high level, multiple six figures, but she was in tears. She was drowning in her life, and she was becoming resentful of her own success because she was constantly just tethered to her phone. And she had a toddler at home. And she said to me that one of her goals for the year was to get pregnant with a second child. But that the way that she was living and operating right now, she didn't feel confident bringing another child into this world because she's so burned out and so exhausted and so spread thin that she doesn't feel like she's even being a good mom. I mean, it was really heartbreaking, to be honest. And within 3 months of working together, she was no longer bringing her phone inside in the evenings. She was no longer working on the weekends. They had bought, within 6 months, they had bought a little cabin in the mountains, and they were going there on the weekends, and it didn't have cell service. So she then had to hire people to cover for her in her business and to create the space for her to do this, right? And even though this was as we were entering a shift in the real estate market and many people's income was experiencing a 40% decline, she experienced growth in her income because the ROI of energy and enthusiasm, most importantly, by hiring someone to help her in her business, turned the light back on within her. What I see a lot is that we are achieving, like we say, this external success, right? But we're drowning and we're starting to lose our spark. I work with a lot of people that have been running businesses for a long time, and their bottleneck is not a shortage of relationships or clients. It's not a shortage of strategy or skills or experience or even authority or respect in their marketplace, right? It's a shortage of energy and enthusiasm and time. And when that light becomes extinguished, everything just feels like a grind. Everything feels hard. And again, that fear, the voices in your head are really strong and convincing that you're better off just settling and sucking it up because you should be lucky to be making good money, right? And so all this to say is that the first thing that happened is we say like she bought herself a life. By hiring that first team member, she bought herself a life. The ROI of energy and enthusiasm was through the roof, which helped her to attract more business, which helped her to grow her income. So it didn't cost her a thing to hire this person. It was going to cost her not to. And in roughly 10 months into working together, she came on a call and told me she was 13 weeks pregnant.
Aww.
And I was crying. She was crying. And, now she has two littles and she is navigating life and business with much more confidence and grace and ease than she had been in the past. And it wasn't about compromising the financial success or the vision to have the cabin in the mountains or, the lake house or whatever. It wasn't about saying, I either am going to be successful or I'm going to be a good mom. It's about how do you literally make decisions, and decisiveness takes courage. It
Yeah.
really does, because it means you're willing to act in spite of your fear, and it means you're committed to the vision enough to decide how your business is going to fit into your life, not with excuses, not with guilt. Just this is my life vision and this is how my business fits into it. And I'm no longer going to apologize for that. I'm choosing this because I became self-employed for a reason. And I didn't take that leap of faith because I wanted to be tethered to my phone from the moment my eyeballs open till they close at night. But that's how many people are living. So, it does require some conviction and some of that enough is enough energy. But yeah, I'm here for it. That's what I'm about. And, I have to take my own advice sometimes too, because I catch myself still. And again, that's why my mentors help me. They call me out when I'm playing small. And that doesn't mean playing small doesn't mean about more, more, more. It just means that are you talking yourself out of the expansion you feel called to because of some story you have? It takes a person who cares about you sometimes to catch you in that narrative and help you challenge it and then rewrite it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And surrounding yourself through with the right people, either coaches, mentors, or the community. For me, it has been my communities, being part of these women that every day they challenge you somehow, some way, to inspire you. And it's not about the achievement, but becoming this person that allows you to go where you want to go and build the life in your own terms. Erin, how do you get your spark and courage?
Oh gosh. Well, I've taken a lot of leaps that I thought would result in like unrealistic, irresponsible, maybe like experimenting with the game of life. And what I found is that time and again, the decision that felt like the biggest risk at the time, where I was absolutely terrified and convinced that this is going to ruin my business, people are going to be mad at me, what are people going to think, whatever, right? That those decisions almost 100% of the time turned out to be my best decision. And I'll tell you that there's also a very deep-rooted philosophy that I have of if not now, when, and not as a lighthearted cliche, but because I had a lot of loss. I lost five of my closest friends starting from fifth grade through the age of 23, and then just quite a bit of unexpected losses in recent years with family members and things like that. And I just try to remind myself, and I spend a lot of time in my morning routine to help me get from wherever I am, wherever I woke up, to where I want to be and how I want to feel and how I want to show up in the world today. Because I genuinely, it's not a morbid thing. It's just that if you're really willing to be grateful for waking up and being alive and for all the people that are still in your life and the blessings that you have and even just the little things, the fact that you're warm in a cold morning or you have a blanket or your bed is comfy or you have your puppy that makes you happy or whatever, right? It's a little bit of work goes a long way in getting you from anywhere on the negative spectrum of emotion, which could be just even exhaustion, worry, anxious energy, frustration, anger, resentment, guilt, all those things, right? To gradually moving along the scale to appreciation, to hope, gratitude, contentment, satisfaction, enthusiasm, anticipation, and then excitement, right? And if you're willing to slow down to evaluate where you are on that scale and recognize that if you're anywhere on the negative side of the spectrum, action isn't going to cure that. We have to figure out how to turn the light on from within. And doing that work every single morning for the past almost 10 years has allowed me to access that enthusiasm and that courage, right? It's not the external world's job to deliver that to us, it's ours to claim. And I think that's the hardest work of all. So I always tell people that work with me, you can go find a coach that's going to give you an action plan. But if we're not going to address what's going on the inside and work from the inside out, then everything's going to feel like an uphill battle. But once we figure out how to get you shifted along that emotional scale, how to have clarity, participation, and all the things, then all of a sudden it's the difference from like paddling upstream and treading water to getting on the life raft and going down the river and having a fun adventure. I just think they're two different frequencies to the same destination. One can feel really hard and one can feel really fun. And I'm going to go for the fun and I'm going to try to help more people do the same.
Yes, yeah. So you have like a little routine every morning then that you do to get you into that mental, spiritual, and energy space.
Yes.
And to that routine, can you share a little bit about that routine with the audience there?
Yeah, so it started in 2015. I was experiencing massive burnout. I had hired my first team member and the business had more than doubled. Again, it sounds like a good problem to have, but now the two of us were drowning and I joke that I started dragging bodies onto a speeding train and just tell everybody, get a seat and figure it out, right? So we were realizing that getting out of my own way was impactful. So getting the right people on the team, getting everybody in the right seats on the bus and all the things. That's where I was at, but I was drowning in all of it. And somebody recommended I read The Miracle Morning. And so I read The Miracle Morning for real estate agents. There's a whole series of Miracle Morning books by Hal Elrod and other authors. And I just decided what's the worst case scenario because I'm suffering right now. I'm struggling. So I'll give it a shot. And within 2 weeks, I felt better. I felt that even though I was setting an alarm to wake up earlier, I felt more energized, more focused, more clear-headed, more enthusiastic, more present, all these things. So all really good outcomes from this morning routine. But if I'm honest, for the next 5 years, I did it I was kind of consistently inconsistent, or maybe inconsistently consistent. I did it probably 3 to 5 days a week, but not on the weekends. And if I look back on that time, I was still kind of wrapped up in this frenetic pace where even doing the miracle morning was like checking boxes, like check the box, I did a 10-minute meditation, check the box, I exercised. In 2020, we took our kids on a 6-month RV road trip and homeschooled them during COVID. And I had to learn how to surrender and slow down because there was no escaping my family in this tiny little RV. And if I woke up, everybody woke up. So I had to stop setting the alarm and I had to learn to chill out and just rest and sleep. And when I get up in the morning and everybody else is awake, I can take my journal and my phone with the meditation and I can go find a place to do my morning routine. And so from that point forward, I became very much religious about the morning routine. Like every single day, it's very, very unusual that I would miss a day. Maybe if I have like a 6 a.m. flight and I have to be at the airport at 4 in the morning or something, but even then I usually do it at the airport. So, and it looks a lot slower now. So I listen to some guided meditation or something positive. I journal a lot. I write goals, vision, gratitudes, whatever comes up for me in the meditation, read, and then I typically exercise later on in the morning. So I'll spend an hour or even 2 hours just reflecting. I like to count the wins. So like look back on the year and make a list of all the new relationships in your life, all the relationships that have deepened, and recognize how many of them were unsolicited by you. So it's an interesting game to play where, you think you have to figure it all out. You think you have to have all the dots connecting forward to this destination, this outcome, this financial result, this number of clients, and all these things. And then your analytical brain wants to go into overdrive thinking, how am I going to make that happen? And so we go into make it happen mode. But if you really take the time to look back and see how much of the great opportunities in your life and the relationships that have found you, they weren't conjured up by your fear-based analytical brain. Like the stars aligned, your paths crossed. And so if we can lighten up a little bit and be more curious for what is in store for us instead of mentally wanting to figure it all out and staying stuck in that fear mode, right? We will start to be a witness to the fact that miracles happen every day. Doors are opening all around us. And you haven't even met half the people that are going to show up in your path in the next 12 months on your way to the outcome you desire for yourself. So it's not to say don't have a desired outcome, like have the desired outcome, but let's ease into it a little bit. We're not going to figure it all out today. We're not going to figure it all out ever. And chances are there's all these beautiful people just right downstream and around the bed. If we can just like loosen the grip, get into the flow, and then the action, like I said earlier, it's a different kind of frequency. It's inspired action. It's not motivation, right? Inspiration over motivation. I find so much clarity in the quiet of the morning and I follow the impulses that come to me. Like call the person that pops into your mind. Don't think that somebody popping up on your social media feed was random. Say hello to them, reach out, make a phone call, tell someone you're thinking of them. And all of a sudden, conversations lead to creativity, lead to new ideas, lead to the outcomes that we desire for ourselves. That might be too woo for some people, but this stuff works. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm following Erin. My engineer mind will always try to reverse engineer and understand every path. And at some point of my life, I find myself finding this little routine that empowers me every morning. And as you mentioned, there's times that I'm still being inconsistent. There's times that I'm fighting with myself because I cannot find that spark to get me going. And when that happens, I go through my journals and my notebooks and I figure out how life has flowed for me from the moments of when I write what was the desired outcome, who I was at the moment as a human being, what did I know about the specific topic at that moment. And 6 months or a year has passed by, and I knew that that was very important for me. So that feeling lead to meet all of these people without a plan. And once I figure out this is what it feels right, this is what it makes sense, I will look back, and I think you love this too. You can never connect the dot looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backward by Steve Jobs. That's when I figure out, it's okay. It's great to have a plan. It's great to have a structure. You have to grow, but not every little detail will go in the way that you expect to go. And so far, you need to allow the universe, God, or whatever it is that you believe to attract that person, that moment, that tool, that knowledge, that book that will create that change. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's how I personally catch my inspiration every morning, or the spark, right? That spark that at some point it turns into a bonfire, but I have to be ready. I have to be ready to receive and let that bonfire expand in the way that needs to be manifest. And and I say, like, I'm not a foo-foo person, right? I'm not. I'm very analytical and it takes a long time for me to get there. But if you don't practice and you don't experience that and you don't allow yourself to express, to find who you are, or even work with a coach or mentor, or be in the presence of community that allows you to unleash that spark, is going to be very hard for you to really go where you want to go. So I hear you.
100%. It's hard. I mean, we use the analogy of the slingshot because if you really want to use a slingshot and have it launch really far, whatever you're slinging, right? You have to pull it back. You have to slow it down in order to launch it. And so many people are in crawl mode, right? I've been really attracted to this, the imagery of the butterfly recently, where they talk about how you have this caterpillar crawling along, and then it forms the chrysalis, and inside the chrysalis, it actually dissolves. It dies completely and becomes this like goop that eventually evolves into the butterfly, right? But in order for this caterpillar to go from crawling to flying and a beautiful butterfly, there's this slow down period and this dissolution, completely dissolving an identity of yours that's outdated. And I think about our thoughts and our beliefs and our habits and how much they're like technology, where over time they just become obsolete, but they're still in there and they're still in there holding you stuck in an outdated version of you. So if we can recognize that what got us to where we are is never going to take us where we're trying to go, and that if you ask me, I don't really want to crawl there. I want to catapult. I want to slingshot my way to the next thing and fly like soar, and I want it to be fun and beautiful. So I love that imagery where you have to be willing to slow down to evaluate what are these stories that are keeping you stuck, and are they true? Can you challenge them? And can you be willing to rewrite those stories so that you can begin to expand into the fullest potential of you, which is like that butterfly emerging. And yeah, I feel like it's a fun adventure if you want to play the game of life, to not allow these stories to keep us stuck, never settle, be more curious, and your curiosity will squash your insecurity, and chase love, and love will conquer fear, and all that stuff. It sounds cheesy, but it's true. So if we prime ourselves in the morning, then we're looking for those good things. And if your future feels better to you, like something that is exciting, you're going to have eager anticipation, enthusiasm. You're going to buzzing a little bit, right? Like fired up. You're kind of showing up different, and people are drawn to that version of you, right? If you're in worry about the future because you think the future might be worse than your now reality, it's going to create anxiety. And anxiety is going to result in a slowdown and a shutdown, and nobody's going to be able to find you because you're caught inside that cage of your own mind. So it takes a lot of effort and a commitment to do the work daily, because I don't believe that we ever outgrow the fact that as human beings, we have brains. And I don't think there's anyone we admire living a life that we desire for ourselves that doesn't still have to do this work to recognize the narrative, the fear, the story that becomes the excuse, take action anyway. And then time and again, you start to build that muscle, because you can look back to all the other times you felt uncertain and you did it anyway and it worked out great. And you're like, okay, here I am again. There's my fear again. Like, all right, I know you. I don't know, like Jen, you and I talked about GoBundance before, and it's this women's organization. And the first time I went 4 years ago to a retreat, I remember thinking, I can't believe they let me in here. How did I get in this room? These people are so amazing. There's so much more successful, smarter, like they seem to have it all put together. Like I had this total imposter syndrome. And I'm still in that organization and I still leave retreats like I did last weekend where I feel like there's something I might be criticizing myself for not being there yet or beat myself up or whatever. And I'm getting better at just watching that happen, that cycle of thought, and say, no, no, no. It's number one, it's good to feel imposter syndrome. It's good to be in the room with people that are going to challenge you to reevaluate. Are you operating at your fullest potential? And that's an opportunity for growth, not condemnation, right? Don't beat yourself up for not being where you want to be, but be eager and curious to grow towards where you want to be and expand into that full potential.
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure. And as you mentioned, you're open to receive that feedback by exposing yourself to be challenged, to be uncomfortable, to deal with your fears, with your inauthentic moments, because I think we go through all of that trying to figure out who we are, and then we need to take the next step. Uh, you have gone through all of this journey as per today, Erin, and I know that people can find you on Instagram and Facebook and see how you live life, how you set up systems, who you are as a mother, as a wife. I mean, I love seeing that, especially when I'm hanging out with the women. You get to see who they are as human beings. And I also know that you're always growing, because I know in the Go Abundance community, that's pretty common. In the Cash for Spark community, that's where we are leading. Where is Erin leading? How is she going to grow these upcoming years?
Well, I opened a community in early 2024 called The Collective, and it's primarily real estate professionals, so agents, lenders, some investors. And the idea here is to get in the room with people that are on the journey with you or going the same places. And um, we're really growing that and expanding that and building this national referral network and accountability partners all over the country and live events and things like that. But if someone just wants to connect, I love hearing from you. I have free resources on my website. There's a free training that can help listeners kind of take the house down to the studs and evaluate what you really want out of your life and business and who do you want to work with and when do you want to work. So you can access that at pursuingfreedom.com/free dash training. That's a great place to learn a little bit more and also do a little bit of the work that we talk about here, drop out of the busyness and into the quiet and access some of that clarity that's going to help you move more quickly like a slingshot to that destination that you crave for yourself. But yeah, you can DM me on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Official or find me on LinkedIn. And I always respond to people's messages. I love hearing from you too. Like I know you probably can relate, Jen, but with my podcast, which is called Pursuing Freedom, we have these conversations and we're enjoying the energy that we're creating together. But then just like, is anybody out there? Is anybody listening? So I always tell people, please send a message on Instagram or on LinkedIn and just if there was a takeaway or if there's a question or if there's a challenge that you're feeling and hearing some of these words, like let us know because it helps us continue to create this content to put out in the world, right?
Yes, for sure, for sure, for sure. And I actually want to encourage everyone listening to this interview to put in the comments below what is the biggest takeaway you had from our conversation with Erin. I know she will love it. And also I will put a link if you want to connect with her. Make sure you go into that link and you look at the free resources so you get to know Erin more. I think she will appreciate that. And Erin, sadly, right, our time is running out, but I really want to be thankful for your time, for sharing your spark with our community. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom.
Well, thank you for creating this amazing community. It's so necessary, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. May the spark shine in you today.